Chapter 7 Wonderful Incarnation. Sai Baba knew all yogic practices. He was well versed in the 6 processes, including dhoti, stomach cleaning by a moistened piece of linen 3 inches in breadth and 22.5 inches in length. Khand Yoga, that is separating his limbs and joining them again, in Samadhi, etc. If you thought that he was a Hindu, he looked like a Yavan. If you thought him to be a Yavan, he looked like a pious Hindu. No one definitely knew whether he was a Hindu or a Mohammedan. He celebrated the Hindu festival of Ram Navami with all due formalities, and at the same time permitted the sandal procession of the Mohammedans. He encouraged wrestling bouts in this festival. When the Gokul Ashtami came, he got the Gopal Kala ceremony duly performed, and on Eid festivals he allowed the Mohammedans to say their prayers, namaz, in his masjid. Once during a Muharram festival, some Mohammedans proposed to construct a tazia or taboot in the masjid, keep it there for some days, and afterwards take it in procession through village. Sai Baba allowed the keeping of the taboot for 4 days, and on the 5th day got it removed from the masjid without the least compunction. If we say that he was a Mohammedan, his ears were pierced, that is, had holes, according to Hindu custom. If you think he was a Hindu, he advocated the practice of circumcision, though according to Mr. Nana Sahib Chandorkar, who observed him closely, he was not himself circumcised. Wide article in Sai Leela on Baba Hindu Ki Yavan by D.V. Dev, page 562. If you call him Hindu, he always lived in the masjid. If Mohammedan, he had always the Thuni sacred fire there, and the following things which are contrary to Mohammedan religion, that is, grinding on the hand mill, blowing of the conch and bells, oblation in the fire, bhajan, giving of food and worship of Baba's feet by means of arghya water, were allowed there. If you think that he was a Mohammedan, the best of Brahmins and Agnihotris, leaving aside their orthodox ways, fell prostrate at his feet. Those who went to make inquiries about his caste were dumbfounded and were captured by his darshan, so none could definitely decide whether Sai Baba was a Hindu or a Mohammedan. This is no wonder, for he who completely surrenders himself to the Lord by getting rid of his egoism and body consciousness thus becomes one with him and has nothing to do with any questions of caste or nationality. Baba saw no difference between any 2 castes and even between things. He took meat and fish with fakirs, but did not grumble when dogs touched the dishes with their mouths. Such a unique and wonderful incarnation was Sai Baba. On account of the merits in my past birth, I had the good fortune to sit at his feet and enjoy his blessed company. The joy and delight I derived therefrom was incomparable. In fact, Sai Baba was pure Anand and consciousness. I cannot sufficiently describe him, his greatness and uniqueness. He who took delight at his feet was established in his own self. Many sannyasis, sadhaks, and all sorts of men aspiring for salvation came to Sai Baba. He always walked, talked, and laughed with them, and always uttered, Allah Malik, God is the sole owner. He never liked discussion or disputation. He was always calm and controlled, though irritable at times, always preached Vedant, and nobody knew till the last who was Baba. Princes and poor people were treated alike by him. He knew the inmost secrets of all, and when he gave expression to them, all were surprised. He was the repository of all knowledge, still he feigned ignorance. He also disliked honor. Such were the characteristics of Sai Baba. Though he had a human body, his deeds testified to his godhood. All people considered him as God in Shirdi. Behavior of Sai Baba. Ignorant as I am, I cannot describe Baba's miracles. He got almost all the temples in Shirdi repaired. Through Tatya Patil, the temples of Shani, Ganpati, Shankar, Parvati, village deity and Maruti were put in order. His charity was also remarkable. The money he used to collect as dakshina was freely distributed, rupees 20 to some, rupees 15 or 50 to others every day. The recipients thought that this was pure charity money, and Baba wished that it should be usefully employed. People benefited immensely by having Baba's darshan. Some became hale and hearty. Wicked people were turned into good ones. Leprosy was cured in some cases. Many got their desires fulfilled without any medicine being put in the eyes. Some blind men got back their sight, and some lame ones got their limbs. Nobody could see the end of his extraordinary greatness. His fame spread far and wide, and pilgrims from all sides flocked to Shirdi. Baba had his asana near the dhuni and always rested there. He sat there in meditation, sometimes without a bath. He used to tie a small white turban on his head and wear a clean dhotar around his waist and a shirt on his body. This was his attire in the beginning. He first practiced medicine in the village. He examined patients and gave medicines. He was always successful, and he became famous as a Hakim, doctor. A curious case may be narrated here. One devotee had his eyes quite red and swollen. No doctor was available in Shirdi. The other devotees took him to Baba. In such cases, other doctors would use ointments, unguents, cow's milk, and camphorated drugs, etc. Baba's remedy was quite unique. He pounded some biba, some carpus anacardium, that is marking nuts, and made 2 balls of them and thrust them on in each eye of the patient and wrapped a cloth bandage round them. Next day the bandage was removed and water was poured over them. The inflammation subsided and the pupils became white and clear. Though the eyes were very delicate, the biba caused no hurt but removed the diseases of the eyes. Many such cases were cured. This is only one instance in this regard. Baba's yogic practices. Baba knew all the processes and practices of yoga. 2 of them will be described here. Dhoti Kriya or cleansing process. Every third day Baba went to the well near banyan tree at a considerable distance from the masjid, washed his mouth and had a bath. On one occasion he was seen throwing up his intestines, clean them inside outside, and place them on a jam tree for drying. There are people in Shirdi who have actually seen this and who have testified to this fact. Ordinary dhoti is done by a moistened piece of linen 3 inches broad, 22.5 feet long. This piece is gulped down the throat and allowed to remain in the stomach for about half an hour for being reacted there and then taken out. But Baba's dhoti was quite unique and extraordinary. Khand Yog. In this practice, Baba extracted the limbs from his body and left them separately at different places in the masjid. Once a gentleman went to masjid and saw the limbs of Baba lying in separate places. He was terrified. He first thought of running to the village officers and informing them of Baba being hacked to pieces and murdered. He thought that perhaps he would be held responsible, so he was the first informant and knew something of the affair, so he kept silent. But next day when he went to the masjid, he was very much surprised to see Baba hale and hearty as before. He thought that what he had seen the previous day was only a dream. Baba practiced yoga since his infancy and nobody knew or guessed the proficiency he had attained in it. He charged no fee for his cures, became renowned and famous by virtue of his merits, gave health to many a poor and suffering person. This famous doctor of doctors cared not for his interest but always worked for the good and welfare of others, himself suffering unbearable and terrible pain many a time in the process. One such instance I will relate now, which will show the all-pervasive and the most merciful character of Sai Baba. Baba's all-pervasiveness and mercy. In the year 1910, Baba was sitting near the dhuni on Diwali and warming himself. He was putting firewood into the dhuni, which was burning brightly. A little later, instead of pushing logs of wood, Baba pushed his arm into the dhuni. His arm was scorched and burnt. This was noticed by the errand boy Madhav and also by Madhav Rao Deshpande Shama. They at once ran to Baba, and Madhav Rao clasped Baba by his waist from behind and dragged him forcibly backward and asked, "Deva, why you done this?" Then Baba came to his senses and replied, "The wife of a blacksmith at some distant place was working the bellows of a furnace. Her husband called her, forgetting that her child was on her lap. She got up hastily and the child slipped into the furnace. I immediately thrust my hand into the furnace and saved the child. I do not mind my arm being burnt, but I am glad that the life of the child is saved."